Wouldn't be starting it off right without a little coffee. Wouldn't be a video without a little bit of coffee. Hot. Pete, I've been practicing. What's up, guys? Ooh, that was just a little too aggressive. I hyped it up too much. What's going on, guys? Peter McKinnon here. Oh, I have no idea how he does that seriously in every video. It blows my mind. Anyway, guys, what is going on? Jake here today, and today we are talking about what I believe is the secret to Peter McKinnon's absolutely crispy, buttery, as he likes to say, 1080p B-roll footage, and really just most of his footage in general. So let's roll that intro sequence. I'm gonna drink a little bit more coffee, Peter McKinnon style, and then we will talk about why I think his footage is so dang good. All right, let's talk, roll that sequence. What's going on YouTube? Jake here again, and today I want to talk about what I believe is the secret to Peter McKinnon's absolutely crispy, buttery footage, as he likes to call. Now, for those of you who don't know who he is, Peter McKinnon is a super popular photography, cinematography type YouTuber. He's really blown up in pretty much the last year. Has several million subscribers, I think, these days, and has gained a lot of popularity, and it's, you know, mostly due to the fact that he's a super charismatic guy, but it's also completely attributed to the fact that he's just such a talented cinematographer. But today, I really want to talk about the single technique that he uses that I think makes his footage look so much better than just about anyone else on the platform. So if you guys haven't watched any of Pete's videos, I definitely encourage you to go check him out to kind of see what I'm talking about. Obviously, I've got a few examples of my own that I kind of want to showcase and see if we can have a little bit of a discussion on what I think is this secret that he uses. So for those of you who know who Pete is, you've probably watched his videos and you know for a fact that he shoots on a Canon 1DX Mark II, which as someone who shoots on Panasonic cameras, I immediately saw that and thought, oh shoot, okay, I guess I'm just never gonna have footage that looks quite like Pete's because I don't have a $6,000 camera to do incredible Canon type shots with. And so this was really kind of what I chalked up his success to, his footage, and I think it definitely helps, but it's not, in my opinion, and what I'm hypothesizing is not the reason why his footage looks so much better than everyone else's. And here's why. For so long, I had just kind of chalked up the 1DX to be the ultimate YouTube and cinematography DSLR, awesome codec, beautiful colors, beautiful image. And a lot of the YouTubers that I follow that used it made great videos. But then the real kicker is when Casey Neistat, who's probably my second favorite YouTuber behind Pete, I love both of these guys, I think their channels are incredible. When Casey said that he was switching to a 1DX, I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be incredible. It's like Pete and Casey having a baby and it's just gonna look like crazy cool all the time. I can't wait to see Casey really try to almost mimic Pete's style. And what I really found was that Casey just stuck with his normal style, which is shooting like he normally does, and the camera really, on YouTube at least, didn't make a difference. Now, this is not knocking on Casey. Again, I love the dude. His channel is super awesome. I think he's a great movie maker, cinematographer type guy. But his style's different than Pete. Pete really focuses on visual aesthetic of his footage, whereas Casey is really, you know, story heavy. I mean, they're both doing both at the same time. It's just there are some, you know, weigh one thing a little heavier than the others. And I'm not knocking Casey, but when you watch his videos, some stuff looks a little blurry sometimes. Some stuff isn't super crispy like Pete's is. Pause. And so this really was the kicker for me because I sat there and went, holy cow, you know, it's not the 1DX. It's not just the user. I mean, two great users, the same camera, you know, similar techniques, but drastically different styles. And the footage is just different. It just looks different. You know, what could be the difference? And that's what we're going to talk about today, which is what I believe is Pete's secret to just the most delicious 1080p footage in the market, because again, he doesn't even shoot in 4K, and he's talked about how he really has no intentions to shoot in 4K for a long time. And so, the moment of truth, guys, what I believe is the secret to Peter McKinnon's crispy footage on YouTube is Boca. Boca, 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 creamy, delicious Boca. Kind of what's going on behind me a little bit. So what is Boca? Now, Boca is really, you know, when portrait mode. When you think about the new phones and what they're doing, how they try to blur that background behind the subject, that is Boca. iPhones and smartphones are trying to mimic this because they don't have big enough sensors and lenses to really actually create that effect, which is a very natural effect in DSLRs, mirrorless cameras, full frame, even Micro Four Thirds cameras. And it's a simple scientific byproduct of lenses and focus and light. And basically what happens, trying to kind of explain it as far as I know it, but what happens is whatever's in focus is sharp and clear, and the light comes through and it focuses directly on the sensor how it should. But then the stuff that's not in focus doesn't hit the sensor correctly. It's kind of how our eyes work, where, you know, like for me, when I need glasses because my eyes aren't focused correctly on certain things and stuff looks blurry. It's a very similar type effect from what I understand in cinematography and photography, and it's a powerful tool in photography and cinematography because it really draws that focus and it blurs that background, and it's noise, it's distortion, but for some reason it looks so good. And that's what I want to talk about first. Why is this so delicious to look at? Well, really, that's how our brain and our eyes work. When I hold my hand up in front of my face, like you guys in the camera, suddenly are super blurry. Everything behind goes out of focus, just as if I'm focusing on the camera and I move my hand in front. It's blurry, it doesn't look as good, it's not as natural, it's just kind of the way that it is. It's really how our brains work. And so what Pete is doing with this technique is really directly hacking into our brains. You know, he's so good at that shallow depth of field, really blurring his backgrounds, making his subjects in such great focus, and it just draws your brain to kind of melt. You sit there and you just look at it and it kind of soothes you because there's not a lot going on. You don't have to worry about what you're focused on. You're focused on one thing. And that our brains really like that. We're really good at multitasking and trying to soak in as much as possible, but when we can focus on one thing, our brains love that. Another little sip of coffee. This is a lot of talking. I don't make it probably nearly as good of coffee as Peter McKinnon, but I probably love it just as much as he does. That's pretty good. Okay, let's get back at it. So anyway, guys, this bokeh effect. Now, obviously, it's a brain games. It's a mental tool, but most importantly, and this is the point I want to take home and what I want you guys to go try and take advantage of, I believe that Pete has directly hacked YouTube's compression algorithm with this technique. We're throwing out a lot of terms today, but let's talk about this. So compression. Compression is the act of taking video and trying to compress it down so that it's a smaller data footprint, and then it's expanded out. And YouTube has to do this simply because sending video over the internet and storing video is expensive. And so when you upload footage to YouTube, you'll always notice, guys, and I'm sure you've done this if you're starting to get into YouTube, man, it looks like crap. I mean, it compresses it, you've got this beautiful project, everything's nice and crispy and clear, even the backgrounds, maybe you shot on a GoPro and maybe everything looks good, everything's in focus, it's awesome. And then you go and slam it on YouTube, and next thing you know, it's grainy, there's blurs, maybe there's people that you're like, man, I wish those weren't blurry, but they're kind of blurry in the background or whatever. And, you know, GoPro footage is really prone to this problem. Really anything that has tons of clarity, tons of things that are in focus, because they have to be sharp, and the compression algorithm has to take corners and it has to compress that footage, and so everything takes a beating. Now, a quick disclaimer, I am a computer scientist. I write code for my job 8 hours a day, but I've never written a compression algorithm. This is simply my guess on what I think is happening, but just based on my observations, based on watching Casey's footage, based on watching Pete's footage, based on watching my own footage and comparing like this camera versus my Sony Pro, my little GoPro, you can seriously see a difference. And even in my videos, I've noticed just a huge quality difference. And so what I believe is happening, guys, I'm gonna flash up a footage with some arrows as I talk through this, but what I believe is happening when you have these blurry backgrounds and when you have these central points of focus that are really, really sharp, I mean, this is just a guess, this is just a hypothesis, but what I think is happening is the YouTube compression algorithm looks at that footage and it sees all of the blurriness, and it immediately goes for those spots and said, yeah, we can compress those, we can shrink those down a ton, there's no sharp lines, there's no sharp edges, everything can be compressed into really small chunks, and then we can blow it out because it's all very similar, it's very blurry, it's very washed out, it's a cool look. And then it gets to the central piece, the piece that's actually in focus, and it goes, yeah, we don't have much to gain right here. Like, we've compressed enough already. The central piece can look good. Now, again, I could be completely wrong. Someone who works on the YouTube compression algorithm, let me know. But that's just my theory. If I was, as a programmer, that's how I would write it. I would write it to be smart, to compress the areas that look like they really could be compressed, and take advantage of that. And so guys, I urge you to shoot this way. And so now the next question you're probably thinking is, Jake, how do we shoot this way? Maybe you're like me and maybe you've only got Micro Four Thirds cameras, maybe you've only got Panasonic cameras that don't let in a ton of light. It's harder to get that bokeh, Maybe you have a Sony full frame mirrorless camera, that's awesome. Maybe you have a Canon full frame mirrorless camera, that's awesome. You don't need as high of apertures with those cameras to get the same amount of blur that you need with like a Micro Four Thirds like my G9 that I'm shooting on. I love my Micro Four Thirds cameras. I love my Panasonic cameras for a plethora of reasons. They're small, they're easy to take around, they feel really professional, and yet they're not just these huge 1DX. I mean, the first time I held one of those cameras, because I have a friend who has one, I was blown away at just how big those cameras are. But anyway, that's for another video. We're not talking about the pros and cons of Micro Four Thirds versus full frame, but what you need to mimic that bokeh, that look with a Micro Four Thirds camera, is an incredibly fast lens. Now, when I say fast, what does that mean? That means a lens with a large aperture, which, just like golf, means you want a lens with a smaller f value. It's backwards, but the smaller the f value, so like 1.2, 1.4, and 1.7, those are what you're aiming for. Most Panasonic lenses are going to start at around 2.8. Some of them will start at 3.5 depending on how expensive they are, but if you get prime lenses, like the one I'm shooting on now, which is the 25mm 50 mil equivalent, this lens is about $100 depending on what day you find it on Amazon. It's a little plasticky, but it's honestly probably my favorite lens. It lets in so much light and you can get some awesome looking bokeh. And so that's what I suggest, guys. Like, I remember the first time I got my G9 and I put on the stock kit lens, which starts at 3.5, and I looked at it, I was like, man, I mean, this awesome camera body just really doesn't make that much of a difference. But if you get prime lenses that are f1.7 or better, you're gonna get just awesome bokeh. I mean, all of my photographs on Instagram, I'll put up a few right here. I love this technique. I love getting that blurriness in between, different spaces or maybe backgrounds or whatever. And it's one of my favorite techniques. And it's the video technique that I believe has totally made Peter McKinnon crack the YouTube code to get just awesome looking footage. So anyway, guys, that is all I have for you today. The secret that I believe Peter McKinnon has used to crack the YouTube code: bokeh. Get at it, test it out. Comment below, tell me your results. I mean, if you guys go and watch like any of my Hawaii videos, which I shot almost exclusively on my FDRX 3000, which is my little GoPro action camera, compare those to like some of my new vlogs with the B-roll and really trying to focus on that shallow depth of field. The quality is just so much different, and it's not, when I'm editing these videos, I don't really notice a difference. When I'm making the projects, they all look good, but then in YouTube, it's when it really matters. So get out there, try this technique, that's awesome. Like this video if you want to hear more stuff like this. I'm super excited to keep talking about camera type stuff on this channel, as well as the black box stuff, which is just a blast. I'm having so much fun with this channel. Feel free to subscribe, and you know what? Let's end it right there. I'll see you guys in the next one. How does Pete end his videos? I'm trying to remember. I think he just peace or hey, see ya? I don't know. What? See you guys. Have a good one.